Good morning. Welcome to Speech Talk Live, episode number 37. My name is Jay Oza, and I have, as usual, Julie Wu Finkelstein joining us today. And we may have somebody else joining later on, but for now, it's just me and Julie, the old reliable. Uh, my name is Jay Oza. I am the host of this show, and I am based out of Hazlitt, New Jersey, which is close to New York City, about 50 miles from New York City. And I kind of do three things. I have my consulting company, which right now I've kind of not taken on any new clients as I'm trying to finish this book that I'm working on that is related to what we do here, which is on public speaking. And the good news is, thanks to Julie's feedback, I'm pretty close to getting my second draft done. Depending on how it goes this weekend, I should have it done by, I don't want to make promises. You know how the books are. When you make promises, you can never deliver. But I'm hoping I can make a real good progress this weekend and get the second draft completed by this weekend. And once the second draft is completed, I can, have a wider distribution. The third thing that I do also is I mentor this Coursera course, Introduction to Public Speaking. I've been doing this now for close to 2 years now, and I think Julie's been doing it for more than a year now. So those are the three things that I work on. The other thing I also do is something that I've started is I also coach people when it comes to public speaking. So these are some of the things that I do. And this program, Speech Talk Live, is sort of part of Julie and I to provide service to the Coursera community and probably a wider community, since we do post it on YouTube. Because as a mentor, we have a limited amount of time. We can't help students individually. So we do this program as a way to answer questions, turn it into segments, and kind of get people to think about speaking on a daily basis, because this is something we do on a daily basis. And we do cover quite a bit of material here. So as usual, the program, after my welcoming speech here, I'll have Julie do a quick intro. And then what we'll do is we do a 3-minute segment, which is sort of like a freestyle where you pick any topic and talk for 3 minutes, roughly 3 minutes. I don't think we enforce the time limit that much, but try to do it in 3. And the purpose is to get people to be more interested in knowing more about what you're talking about, or want to have a conversation about the topic that you're discussing or talking about. Then after that, we have 3 segments today. As usual, the first segment is something that I've been thinking about, and I think Julie's also been thinking about this when it comes to performing. And I want to just kind of have a discussion. I have a video that I'm using for this discussion about what is the difference between performance versus acting. And when people say, well, I can't act, so we're going to have a discussion on that topic, and I would like Julie's feedback on that, what she thinks of it. The second segment, I will hand it off to Julie, because she has recorded a video on creating your identity. One of the things that we are always interested in is creating a message, which is more of how the customer or audience or people see us. But first, you need to know, how do you see yourself? And Julie has given quite a bit of thought on this topic, and she's recorded a video, and I'll let her kind of walk through, kind of summarize the video, and even review the video for us on what she thinks of it, because part of that video is she not only wants to teach this concept, but also she wants to become a better speaker doing that. So I'll let her facilitate that segment. And the third segment I kind of throw in there is something that we get asked, and Julie and I are both over 30 now, and the questions we often get asked is, what would you say to your younger self? It's a common question, and it's something that you have to think about. And in the video, I've given the advice that I would give, and I'd like Julie and to talk about the advice that she would give, and we'll have a discussion on that. So that may have nothing to do with speech, but still, it's a kind of question that you have to think about. It's kind of related to the second segment about identity. Like, so these are the topics for today. And at this point, I would like to have Julie introduce herself, and then we'll move into our 3-minute speech segment. Julie, take it over. You're still muted.
Thanks, Jay. Sunny outside in Stanford. I'm looking forward to our program discussion. I always get such a jolt of energy out of it. My purpose today is to sit in the place where I like to share with everybody ways to unleash energy and to live a powerful life. One of the ways to do that is connect with the body and mind, which is part of the mind aspect this week on the identity, which I'll go into more. In addition, I run 4 community workshops. They're all online, so you can join me anytime, anywhere in the world. I have a stretch on Thursday mornings, which is the book I'm writing. On Wednesday, we have a discussion group and a collaboration on manifesting our life, empowering our life. On Thursday, I'm creating a quiet time where people can do work silently together. I'm calling it the Parallel Act. And then Saturday mornings, I have a reading and discussion where we read and discuss our success. So thank you. That's me.
Wow, you stay pretty busy. Okay, so that's great. So I'm going to take a brief pause, and then we'll move into our 3-minute segment. Okay, welcome back. My name is Jay Oza, and this is Speech Talk Live episode number 37. And we're moving into our 3-minute segment where we pretty much can talk about any topic. It's a free speaking session where you get to practice like if you had an opportunity to meet somebody and you wanted to talk about something. So I will pick a topic that's kind of current. I tend to pick topics that are somewhat politically related since I have an interest in politics and since politics is all around us. And it's a question that, so here's an example of this, the kind of question that I'm asking myself, that if I was in a topic, typically I don't get into political discussion. So that's why this is perfect, so that I can kind of do it in the 3-minute segment, because you know how it is, that there are certain topics you don't broach. But I'm assuming that this is a topic you'll be discussing with somebody who is mature and is interested in understanding my point of view. So that's the context here. So the question is, the question that you keep hearing about it is that there's a lot of anger out there, that people are voting because they're very angry. So I thought about this. What does that really mean? Like, what is this anger? And yeah, people are angry. And the question is, what is the cause of the anger? And the cause could be quite a bit of things, right? Could be many things. People feel like they're not making the progress. The middle class is being left behind. The costs are going up on everything, college education, you name it. Everything seems to be, price seems to be increasing. The lifestyle, the standard of living that the middle class used to enjoy is no longer possible because the housing prices are going up. The people just cannot afford certain things that we kind of took it for granted, like college education, and kind of move upward in life. And that's causing the anger. But I think there is something even more fundamental than that. And before I go into the fundamental, and what that does is when people get angry, they tend to lash out. And one of the things that Donald Trump has done so well is that he tapped into some anger that people had. But when people get angry, they need to find scapegoats. So that famous line comes to mind if you ever remember that movie. I'm sure Julie probably knows this movie quite well. Saturday Night Fever. Julie, do you remember that movie, Saturday Night Fever with John Travolta? And in that movie, there was this particular scene where there was a dance competition, and John Travolta and his girlfriend, they ended up was picked as the winner. And John Travolta was not happy because evidently there was a Hispanic couple, I think they were Puerto Ricans, that did a better dance, and John Travolta felt that they should have won, but it was rigged. So they gave him the award, and John Travolta, as he was leaving, because his friend were all congratulating him, and John Travolta, I forgot his name, the acting name he had, and he gives the trophy to this Hispanic couple, said, "Listen, you are better than us, you deserve it." And John Travolta's girlfriend is not too happy about that. And as they were leaving the nightclub, the discotheque, he says, that the way it is like, we dump on this, people dump on everybody, and that's how life works. And he was just not happy that people cannot be fair about things, and it's always like, we're going to get back at this group, they're going to get back at that group, and that's kind of what I see that's currently happening, that people feel that they're being dumped on, so the only thing they can do is dump on the people that are at the kind of the least powerful, and the least powerful tend to be these illegal immigrants who come to this country to have a better life. And that's a problem, I understand it, but the solution isn't that simple. And that's the anger, that's the result of what's going on, that people need to lash out at some group because they feel like if they don't, then how do they get even? They need to get even by lashing out at some group that can't lash back, and that's what I see happening. But the other thing that I can see that is causing a lot of anger is what you experience now every time you go out. For example, when you go to a concert or a sports game, there is so much that companies now try to nickel and dime you to death. You go and fly in an airline. Previously, you just bought a ticket and everything was taken care of. Now, the ticket is just for you to get on the plane, and then everything else is all, not to get on the plane, just to able to clear out the security, essentially. You have to pay for a luggage, you have to pay for so many things, and after a while it just drives you crazy. Like, you go into a hotel and there are so many miscellaneous charges. You take a look at your phone bill, there are so many miscellaneous charges that after a while you just can't make sense of any of this stuff. Like what exactly are you really paying for? So just recently I went to ship a package at Staples, and in the past you just took a package and they would have a tape there and you could tape it. And I just noticed that when I went there last week, there was a sign there that every time now, if you want your package taped, you have to pay $1. And for a minute, I just got like really angry. I said, wait a second, they're going to charge me $1 for a tape? I mean, like, these companies need to be that greedy that they need to make money from a tape? Like, how much is that costing them? And I was like really angry. I said, these companies, they just don't understand. They're just going to take advantage of any opportunity they get. And if this keeps happening over and over again in everything you do in life, that after a while you just feel like there is this entire system that's out to get you. And that results in anger. And it's like a pent-up anger that you feel like, I have to lash out at somebody. So I can understand the anger that people are talking about, but I don't think people are explaining what that anger is. It's not anger that illegal immigrants, I don't even see any illegal immigrants. I mean, there must be around, but they don't really bother me, right? But people feel like they have to get back at somebody to feel like that, hey, I am now being, I can take out my anger on somebody. But nobody's addressing what is the real root of this problem. And I think it's something that people need to think about, because if not, things can get out of control very quickly. And if you remember, in Germany in the 30s, people were angry there. And we had a guy named Adolf Hitler who took over because he was willing to say things that people thought about, but they were not able to express. And look what happened. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen in America, but you know what? It doesn't take much for things to completely go out of control. So I just hope that people are thinking about these kind of things and are having that discussion among friends and people, so that people can get this anger out and bring it out in the open. And what is the root of the problem? What's causing all this anger? So I hope people do that. Okay, Julie, your turn.
Thanks, Jay. I really appreciate that. Of course, the Republican nominees were speaking, delegates were speaking yesterday. So I didn't watch the whole thing. I saw snippets of it. So thank you for that. I agree. We need to look at the root of the problem and not get carried away with the drama. So, okay. So, Jay, it's yet last week. Again, I'm Julie, and today I'm going to talk about another way to hack at unleashing that power that's already inside your body. And Jay reminded me that one of my messages is that the body and mind are not separate. And so when you unleash energy from your body, you can use that energy for both your physical processes as well as the projects in your life, the emotions, your relationships. So last week we did the tennis ball and the golf ball technique. Do you remember that, Jay? Today, I'm going to take Jay's suggestion and say, you can do this. He suggested I say when you can do this. So you can do this when you wake up. This is a very powerful energy process. I'm calling it the frog. I think it's a great time to like before the shower, and then or even do it in the shower. Some people saying you can dance the frog, or when you're having coffee. Also, once you start doing physically, you can also do a mentally visualization. So is there a way for me to share an image? Do you know, Jay? Maybe I can just see if I can paste it in here. Control B. No. Okay. So I can't hear you, Jay. You're muted.
We may have to test that out separately. I don't know how to do it right now.
Okay.
So one day we'll just have a session to try out like PowerPoint and all these other things
maybe,
that are.
Yeah, maybe next Wednesday.
Yeah, sounds good.
So when you can just imagine the frog. When you look at a frog, and Jay, please feel free and jump in. When you see the frog sitting, where do you think the power is? Do you see where the frog's power is?
Oh, when the frog is sitting?
Or jumping? Where do you see?
Legs or thighs?
Yeah, they have tremendous thighs, right?
Yeah.
But in order to power the thighs, you have to have the hips and the stomach muscles, because that's really what's the thighs could get unhinged if they're not hinged really powerfully in the belly area, right? So, when the frog swims, the frog's leg goes up, out, and push. Is that right? I think it's up, push, come back in. Okay, so if you can imagine doing that, but don't just use your thighs. Imagine your belly's pulling your legs up. You can even do it sitting down now. And then bring it up and then unleash that power and bring it back. Okay, and you can do it actually each side.
Can you show that again? I kind of missed it. I'm not able to see your entire body, so I'm not sure exactly what you're doing.
Just listen. So just take one side of the leg, sit, like put your weight on one side of your hip. So imagine your belly is pulling your feet up, and then bring it out, and then push. Bring your feet back to the center. Bring the feet up. So basically you're doing the breaststroke, okay? Can you feel the power? Now you want to feel like when you come up, when you open up, you want to feel like as if though your pelvis is like a butterfly opening up, okay? So yeah, I'll try to. So you bring your feet up, bring it out, and come out. And then come back in center And so it's basically the breaststroke. In the morning when you wake up, you can do one leg, the other leg, and then balance them doing two. And you can also do the breaststroke. Since I'm down on time, you can also do the breaststroke, which is bring it up, out, come down, up, out, and come down. So it's really the same motion with your feet. So scoop up the water, right? Flip it out, push out. So when you do that, imagine that someone's not really just pulling your fingertips, but they're opening up your whole chest. Okay. So you can see it's an enlargement, a continuation of what we learned last week. And then at the end, after you do that, do rest, and then just do some seaweed. Imagine your seaweed in the water. And what that does is it balances out all the energy that you unleash so that it's not too jagged anyway. So that's it. This is called the frog. And you can do one at the bottom or the top, and then finish with the seaweed, and you can do it anytime. First do it physically, then you can do it in your imagination. Thank you.
Oh, okay, that was great. So the frog, when the way you're describing is when the frog is in the water doing it, right? Not when it's just jumping outside the water, right? Okay, you're muted. So
I was putting myself on time limit. Yeah, so it's swimming. So what it does is it's just like the starfish, right? Because it opens yourself up from the center out, but it's dynamic. It's a movement. So if you look at the frog, it's being a starfish, but it's doing it continuously. So it's a continuation of that theme of expansion, but also contraction, because when you take a basketball, when you contract it, it gives the power to bounce up, right? So the contraction is gathering the energy to release it. So it's really a continuation of the starfish. We can call it the dynamic starfish.
All right, sounds good. So the motion is like what you're saying, that if you're doing a breaststroke in the water, that's how you're supposed to move your leg. That's the motion. Okay. You're muted again. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, got it. Okay, we'll take a break and move to our first segment. Okay, thanks a lot, Julie. That was good. I'm learning a lot. I can't wait to see you put all these videos together, all these different poses. At some point, just do one pose, a video for one pose, a video for another pose, video for a third pose, and then combine all of them. I think that'll be very, very powerful. And that could be a course right there, the energy hack that you're working on. Okay, so at this point, we're going to take a break, a pause, and then come back and do our first segment. Okay, welcome back. This is Jay Oza, Speech Talk Live, episode 37, segment 1. In this segment, we're going to have a discussion around this concept of putting on a performance when you are speaking. And I think this is one of those topic that needs to be discussed, because it's a word that gets used a lot, and people, I believe, are not really clear on what does that really mean. They think like they have to somehow be out of their element and put on a performance like an actor does. So I thought that we need to spend and explain what this really means. Because when you think of performance, we think of actors putting on a performance in movies or in theater. And that's not what we're talking about when it comes to speaking. Because when you look at an actor, for example, let's just step back a little. When you go see a movie, you are going there to be entertained. That means that an actor has to create a reality that's not part of your experience. If it were part of your experience, then that actor isn't going to be able to create any kind of reality that's going to be any different from what you already live with every day in your life. right? Like we go see a movie about war. That's not part of our reality. We go see a movie about love. That may not be part of our reality either, depending on, certain kind of love. So there are different kind of reality that they have to create, and that's why we pay money. Either we go see a Broadway play or we go see a movie. So those are actors that are really good at what they do to create that reality that we can experience for the time that we're watching the movie or we're watching a play. Okay, so that's what a performance is of an actor, and that performance has to be from start to finish. Otherwise, if they're not performing from start to finish, then you feel like, my God, I wasted my money. Where was this performance that I was paying money for? You're expecting that, and they have to deliver. Now, when you're speaking, the performance is different. You are essentially creating a performance of who you really are. Now, for some people, that could be naturally who they are. They just are very open. But it's not that simple, because sometimes you want to reveal things about yourself, but you don't want to reveal too much to the point where you become a kind of sympathetic. So it's a really a fine line. Like if somebody gets on a stage and starts crying and cannot control himself, that person is becoming too real. It's becoming, that person is now not performing. It's becoming more of that person is pretty much going through his experience right on the stage. And I'm not sure that is the kind of performance we're talking about. The kind of performance as a speaker is that you are trying to communicate some topic. Like, let's say I'll just use Julie as an example, where she could be talking about, she's presenting a topic on these exercises that you do for well-being. And that is a performance because she is kind of bringing herself into the presentation. She's not just saying, hey, by the way, let me just tell you what I read and just go through that. But she's not bringing herself into that presentation. Then I'm not sure as an audience, that's what you want to hear. It's not something you can resonate with. But then when she starts bringing herself more and more into that presentation and said, but let me tell you, here's what I do when I get up in the morning. Here's what I do when I'm, down or not feeling happy. Here's what I do when I have a backache or this ache. So right away, we're now saying, hey, I'm now understanding this topic that she's presenting. And she's essentially becomes at that point a first party actor, but she's putting on a first party performance like what she just did when she did her 3-minute segment. And that's the kind of performance that I'm talking about, that when you're giving a speech, you're not going to try to be an actor. That's not what you do. You have to bring out more of yourself so that the audience can really relate to who you really are. And that person shouldn't be different if they were to meet with you one-on-one later on saying, hey, I liked your topic. Can we have a further discussion on that? Now, it's not like you're going to be able to replicate that kind of performance, but the deltas shouldn't be that different, right? Like actors, there is a big difference. An actor putting on a performance is not the same as the actor after you see the performance. That's going to be a big difference. But as an individual, you're trying to narrow it to who you are in your performance and who you really are yourself. There shouldn't be a difference. So if that makes any sense. So I think it's important to understand that when you're performing, what exactly are you trying to do? You're trying to become more real to your audience. Now that sounds kind of simple, but it's not that simple, because a lot of people do not want to expose themselves. They rather just talk about a topic, but they don't want to bring themselves into the topic. And some of them are not willing to go there. And when they don't go there, the presentation is just not that powerful, at least from my opinion. So that's what I think, and that's how I understand it. Because first you have to understand this, so that then you can work on some kind of performance hack on how to create that performance that makes you memorable and makes your speech really powerful. So I'd like Julie's thoughts on this. What does she do, like when she's take when she has a speech and she needs to put on a performance? Does she even think of it as a performance? And how does she make it real to the audience so that they really understand who Julie Wu Finkelstein really is when she's talking about her topic?
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, so I really like this discussion because I know you're a big fan of Michael Port's, and I actually was introduced to Michael Port by you, and he talks about acting. But I really like the distinction between acting and performance and what you call the third-party actor. So I think what a third-party actor is being using the professional skills of acting, taking on the personality of another person. A first performance actor is to stay authentically within themselves, but there are certain performance techniques that helps us to become a little bigger than our everyday lives, who we are in everyday bigger than life. So for example, I tend to be a soft speaker, but when I'm coming on here, I've been practicing to speak louder. And so I need to do more of that. But I noticed that even today when we start talking, I am louder when I'm here than when in my everyday life. But actually, this might be useful for me in other areas too. So in a first person acting, I think there's still the performance aspects relates to like gesture, voice, tone, pitch, pause, body movement, eye contact, showing excitement and enthusiasm or depression, the emotions. So it's basically using our body as a tool to convey thoughts and emotions and our core values. So I think our authentic selves can be looked at as three major components: our core values, our feelings, and our thoughts, and how our behavior comes out of that. So maybe four, if you like, and they're really all interrelated. So as a first level actor, I think what you're saying is stay authentic, stay in true alignment with how you feel, what your core beliefs and values are, and how you think. But um, develop certain behavioral skills so that you become a little bit more dramatic, and so your message can come across more clearly. But staying in authenticity and then make it more professional, using the professional tools to become more dynamic. And I think those are great points. So that's what I got out of it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you summarized it quite well. What I was saying, and the main thing that I'm trying to get across in that video that I recorded is that when you are speaking, see what happens is that the reason why one of the things that I've used in the past, I always call a speech sometimes that's given that kind of hits all the points, and I call those speeches. These are typically the kind of speeches you get in a business setting, and for some reason they seem to be popular and people have picked up. I call these speech boring good, right? They're not bad speeches, but there's nothing there. That speech could be given by somebody else. That's how I look at it. So let me simplify it further. If you give a speech, and if that speech could have been given by somebody else and could have communicated the same subject, then that means that, to me, that means that was a third party performance. It wasn't a first party performance. But if Julie's giving a talk on energy hack and she's bringing something that's unique to her, then that at that point is not a third party performance. It becomes a very much a first party performance, to the point where she is now using her own experience to explain the topic in a way that only she can. And this sounds somewhat complicated, like, oh my God, I got to know so much. You really don't have to know a lot. I mean, the word authentic seems to be used a lot out there. What does the word authentic really mean? authentic really means is that don't be a phony. Be yourself. And be yourself means that a lot of times when people are speaking, that's the last thing they want to be. They think that they are performing, but they're performing in a different. So when we look at a bad speaker, and a lot of times what happens is that sometimes you meet somebody and the way they talk to you one on one, and when that person is suddenly on the stage, you don't recognize that person. That person is now putting on a third party performance. And what I'm saying is that that person is not an actor. His third party performance is going to suck because that's not what he's talented in. What he should do is take himself and make his first party performance even better. And then he will be able to resonate with the audience. And that's a lot of times is the mistake. And I think it could be because a lot of these people have never been taught properly what performing in front of an audience really means, that they think they have to be somehow different than who they are. And I think in business, you see this all the time where executives, when you see them, and it also happens in politics, you always get comments like, oh, so-and-so politician is great one-on-one, but when you put him in when he's giving a speech, it's like he's totally a stiff. And that means that that person has not been taught what a performance is all about. And a lot of politicians are not relatable. They come across like politicians. When one of the things that makes Donald Trump so attractive to people is that he really is a first party performer of, like him or not, this is not about whether you agree with his message. But I think if there is a perfect model of a first party performer, I would say a good example is to look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not going to look and sound any different if you meet him one on one. He will be that same person. And he's been able to take that and put it into his political performance. And people have been able to really resonate with who he is. They don't even know what he stands for about any of the policies. I don't think he has any policies on anything, but it works. So what my point is that if you're a first party performer, audience really resonate with being a first party performer. They really get what you're saying. They understand you and they think they know you. And that was my whole point of this, that business leaders should start doing that. That's something that, we can coach if you're in that situation where you have to give a speech, that you need to come across as a first party performer. And typically by de facto, what happens is that when business people are giving a speech, they immediately take on a third party performer mode, and that's not what they're good at. And the speech usually sucks. Julie, any closing thoughts?
I think this is very creative and really powerful. I think I made a picture of it. So I think there's a lot of potential in this speech. So thank you. Yeah, I can't hear you.
Do you want to comment on it, because you have a lot of business background? And do you agree with what I just said, that a lot of times when business people are giving a speech, right, and topic is usually a third, and that's another thing which we didn't, this could get expanded. There is a first party actor, first party performance, and a first party topic, right? And what happens is that business people are talking about a topic which is not about them, it's about something else, it's about business. And immediately, because the topic is a third party topic, they immediately take on the third party performance role. This is something I'm just kind of making up on the fly as we are talking. And I think that makes business people so aloof when they're giving their presentation, that because the topic isn't something they deal with, they don't bring their personality, they don't take their business personally. They take it as like something that's happening to somebody else. Like, oh, the today our profit was down. It's almost like a third party. Like things just start happening. It's not personal. Like, oh my God, we are in trouble. Our profit went down. It's almost like something is happening that's external to them. And then when they're speaking, they come across like that, a third party performer, and they don't resonate with the people. And in business, this seems to be quite prevalent. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on it, since you have a real strong business background.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what is happening is our culture is switching. One of the ways people say is that we're moving from a mechanical world to an informational world, but we're also moving from, like mass marketing to customized marketing. So when we were growing up and in our business, we are supposed to be objective. because the knowledge and the power was in the quote-unquote scientific process, and you're supposed to move the person out of it. But in doing that, you kind of threw away some of the babies in the bath water because of the information age, and because of the power of the the information technology, right? The mega databases, the internet. That now we can be individual again, and we can be passionate. And so I think what you're saying is put yourself back into the picture. We know that what you're saying, if your profit is gone, or if you're talking about, like me, about how to become more successful, we know that there's scientific basis, but we want to know why you think it's so important. So put yourself back into the picture. Don't just be objective. Show me your passion. You say, show me the beef, show me the passion. I think that's what you're saying. And this is liberating from anybody who's speaking in business world, because then they can really tap into certain behaviors of gesture, tone, volume, pitch, and not have to worry about being objective. Take the message, take the facts, and then dramatize it in your own personal way. So I think you got something really amazing here.
Yeah, so one thing I will point out is, after listening to what you just said, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, I think entrepreneurs can do this well, because for them, their business is very personal. They started it. Like Steve Jobs, like Bill Gates, or some of these other people, because they started their company. There is that deep attachment to that, right? So for them, their business is personal. But when people haven't done that, like, for example, what we do is very personal, since we are trying to create this, right? So we bring this as part of who we are. Entrepreneurs can do that. But when people are not entrepreneurs, they just get a job, or they just are being hired, they don't show that, or somehow they're not trained that they have to make that very personal. It's very hard for them to do it. I don't know what the answer is here, whether it's a matter of training, or it's something that they just have to internalize, like, oh, I am now a vice president. How do I internalize it? Or am I still working for somebody else? And when they have that mode that they're working for somebody else, they take on that third party role, and it's very hard to get out of it. Whereas if I've started the company, I always remain. The company is always my first party when I'm talking about that company. And anyway, that's a pretty broad topic, but that's one of the things I think might be happening in the business world, where people in the company are not being trained properly to how to view their existence within that company.
Yes, so I have to speak to that.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I have to, because I was reading this astrology chart, and then I read this wonderful book I haven't read it, but I got this wonderful book. Can you see it? It's called The Originals, or Originals, okay? So this is the year of destruction, or the year of disruption. So everything's changing. So that leads to two things. In a time of revolution, Mao says revolution is not a tea party, right? The question is, where do you find your stability? Where do you find your center of power that drives you? Those of us who have had this corporate career, we always want to do things right, because the power of defining what's right and wrong was outside of us, okay? But a hacker, they know what's right in their gut. They can't tell you. But everything they do, they are checking it. Is this right? But not to the world at large, to their own gut, okay? In this year, this is a year of innovation, because along with destruction of traditional ideas is the birth of new ideas. You can call it the year of the destruction, or you can call it the year of creation. this year everything's going to change. This is a very dynamic, stressful, traumatic, creative, potential, joyful year. So what you're talking about, like what is a personal performance, is a shifting of the power from the organization into the individual if they want to take it. If they don't, life is going to be very stressful because the world is changing and there's no stable definition of right. So if you want to get your boss to say you're right, it's a tough times for you.
Yeah, to finish this out, I'll point out to one more thing. There is this book that I read a while back. It's by a professor from Dartmouth. He's quite famous. He's like ranked in the top 10, I believe, as a thought leader for businesses. His name is Vijay Govindarajan. I don't know if that name makes any sense to you. And he wrote this book called The Other Side of Mountain or something like that. And the whole book's premise is that in a company, they're always talking about innovation, right? That all companies, they all give a nice lip service to innovation, but it's very difficult to really innovate. And a lot of it has to do with the culture that innovation. So most companies are geared for performance, right? They have to execute. That's how they're measured, for performance. This is a different kind of performance we're talking about. This is performance with metrics on how the Wall Street views your performance, right? Are you delivering the numbers? And at the same time, they all are worried, the CEOs, that our company is not innovating. And one of the things is that innovators' language is different. When people are innovating, their language is different than when people are performing. When people are performing, it becomes more of a third-party thing. When people are innovating, it becomes much more personal. And that language has a lot to do with, I mean, I don't know, I may be going beyond my ability to talk intelligently here, but sometimes the language can tell you more about the culture that exists within a company or within a house or within any entity, on how they talk in a particular, the language, the way they talk can tell you what their culture is. And if you're a culture that fosters innovation, and if you listen to a speech given by somebody, that will show you whether they have an innovation culture or not. And if that same person sounds more like they're talking like it's a performance-oriented company, then they're going to have a very tough time innovating. So again, it goes back to that when people are giving a business talk, when a company is measured on performance, they just can't sound that personal because they don't live it. That's not who they are. Anyway, I think we're stretching this too far now. We're going to have to do revisit this from a business standpoint, like why these business presentations suck. So maybe that's something I'll jot it down on how to make business presentations more interesting. Okay, so we'll close out this segment and we'll move on to our next segment. So thank you. Welcome back. My name is Jay Oza, and this is Speech Talk Live, episode number 37. And this is our second segment of this show. And in this segment, Julie Wu Finkelstein will facilitate it. And she has recorded this video of this concept that she's trying to bring forth, or she's trying to develop, I should say. So she's kind of iterating at this point. She's iterating and she's released this pretty fast. So she's a really entrepreneurial, she's using her entrepreneurial mindset with her speech. She views her speech as her product. So this is her iterate fast, release often mode here. And the video that she's released, she's talking about it's a very interesting topic she's talking about, that we all want to create a message for others. And I think what Julie's trying to, and I'll let Julie take over at this in a little while, is that before you can do that, before you can try to convince the people on how to view you, you need to first spend that time to understand who you really are. Because if you don't know who you are, then there can't be that gap between, so if I know who I am, and if I ask Julie, based on what you know about me, who am I? There shouldn't be that difference. If there is a lot of sunshine between that, then there's some real gap here. There shouldn't be that kind of a gap. So what Julie's trying to do is that if you want others to see you in a particular way, then first you got to know what that is so that you can create a messaging around it so that you narrow that gap, or there is no gap between who you are and how other people view you. So at least that's what I think Julie's trying to do. I'll let Julie take over and explain her concept of identity hack that she's talking about. And then also she can talk about the speech that she's recorded, since this is part of her product, on what she thinks of it and what she needs to do to improve it. And then I'll give her my feedback. All right,
Oh,
Julie, take over.
okay, thanks, Jay. I think what would you? I'd like to do two little segments instead of the whole thing all at once. Would you like me to do the quality of the speech first, or do the content first, and then I'll get your feedback, and then I'll do the next piece.
Okay, so why don't we first just do do the content, and then I'll come back and give you my feedback on the content, and then after that you can then review your speech on what you thought of the speech that you gave. If you want to do that, that is.
Yes.
I'll leave that up to you.
Yes,
okay, if you want to do that, because
okay.
this is your recording, so I don't want to tell you what to do here. So
No,
why don't you just
great.
focus on the? Why don't you first explain the identity? Summarize it. You don't have to redo the whole video. Identity hack. What is the main message you're trying to communicate if you had to give this speech in front of an audience? And what is it, and what are you trying to accomplish with this? Okay, and then after that you can then I'll give you the feedback on what I think, and then we can move into the actual reviewing the speech.
Okay, thanks, Jay. So basically, you're right that I created a little product on it. I have a PowerPoint workshop, and I've delivered segments of it the past few days with the people that I coach, and the people I collaborate in a coaching relationship. And the feedback I got was this was something they didn't know they need, but it really made them feel more powerful, and it hit the nail on the head. Okay, so I'm very, very excited about the potential of this. So if you watch the speech, you will know that what I said is that we all have a sense of who we are, and we take the sense of who we are, and we relate to our world. Okay, and for convenience, I said there's three different worlds. One is our inner world. Our inner world is our relationship with ourselves, who we are, who we feel we are, who we think we are. And also out of that comes our visions and our missions and what's important to us, our core values. And those things then drive in our relationships with, and I'm loosely creating a personal world. Those are like our significant others, not just our one significant other, but very private, very deeply personal and important relationships to us. So spouses, partners, either in business, in life, and of course children. And then there is what I call the larger world. And still there is the work world, which is, in my view, not as significant as the personal world, but it's still, perhaps it is another sector of the personal world. Okay, and then there's a society and community at large. Who we are drives all that. Okay, but right now we kind of do it willy-nilly because we don't think of it in this way. So one of the things about technology, methodology, and power is like a laser beam. It focuses the energy. So when I was able to work with these people, they have a much better sense of who they are. So for example, this one woman, she was a healer, but I have her talk about who she is, and she said, I'm a body worker, and I do this kind of body work, and people get this kind of experience. The next day she called me up, she said, am I just a body worker? And I said, no, but we didn't finish the workshop because of time limitations. I think had we gone on, you would find out that you were a teacher, you were a magician, and you were a healer, and you were a fighter, because she says, yes, I'm a samurai. Okay. So the fact that she identifies herself with these, what I would call personal archetypes, it drives her. because at this point in her life, she was stuck. She didn't know how to craft a business or a job. She didn't know whether to get a job and get a business. And how many of us are in that segment, right? She wants to get a job, she doesn't know what jobs will make her happy or rich or whatever. Now she has a resource that she can use as a priority check to get the job she wants. Similarly, like I talk about the musician, now he has a basis to have a sense to say, this is who I am, and this is what my music speaks to. And he can relate his personal stories to it. So that when he talks to a journalist, he can give them a nice little packet of story that the journalist can use in an article. So in a job interview, the first few minutes, you always just chit chat. It's not for nothing, right? They're trying to figure out who you are. So once you have these tools and you know who you are, you have the stories that bear that out, you have examples, and you've already used the speech techniques to link that message up, you become very powerful in any situation. So that's the content of it. So I have a structure technique, which is a little bit different than the lean speech method, and it's a little bit different than the hack and identity. I started off with hacking. I'm calling it today the craft method, in that like if you were an artist, if you were working with a piece of wood or a diamond, the form is inside the material. So our job is to respect that and surface that. Okay, so it's a little different than hacking. It's a little bit different than LSM, but it uses some of those techniques. But we want to respect and relate to the innate dignity that's already inside the individual. So that's my content speech. So I'll get feedback from that from you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. I like it. I think what you said was absolutely correct. That a lot of people, when you talk to about this, and they're going to say, well, they think they know what their identity. Or a lot of people haven't even thought about it. Like, to be honest with you, I need to do that too, because I need to figure out, what is my real identity? Because unless, I think in some ways, I think we've gone over this once, that I'm kind of, curiosity is my own identity, that I'm kind of curious, and how am I using that to help others? That's what I need to figure out. So I need to go through this. I think the reason why you're calling this as a craft, and this could be just a matter of semantics. The reason I think the hack is that a lot of people don't want to spend the reason why I like the word hack is because hack has this notion that you don't have to figure out in one setting, that you can start it and it doesn't have to be completed, but then it's okay. It gives you permission to revisit it and keep hacking it till you feel that you're comfortable. When the name changes, then people feel like, oh my God, I got so much pressure. I got to do it in this one setting. And that's what I don't want, like a speech. I don't want to create the impression that speech is, because otherwise you're trying to get them to become perfect. And hack means that you're never perfect. Hack means you got the permission to keep improving it till you're happy. And again, it may never be perfect. It's one of those asymptotic, is that what it is? Like, it never really touches the line, it just keeps going. I don't know, my math might be screwed up here, but I need to review that, so take that back. Maybe it's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying, that hack means you're just kind of getting incrementally getting closer till you feel like, I think I got it, I think I live it, I think I know it. And for some people, that is a process. It's not going to happen in one setting. It's something that they have to think about. And what I like to do is to get them to start thinking that way. So then they can work with you and come back to you and saying, hey, I've been hacking. Now what do you think of it? And you can kind of guide them. So I don't know. you're using a different word. Are you still trying to do the same thing? Because a lot of these things are kind of personal too, where people don't want to think that way about themselves. They haven't even thought about it. And for them, it's a big step up to start thinking after all these years they're doing something. They think their identity is already set, and it can also change, right? Sometimes people want to change their identity of what they're doing. Like I'm trying to change my identity. I was a techie. I don't view myself as a techie anymore. So I've gone through an identity change here. If you had asked me a decade ago, maybe more than that, I would have said I'm a techie, and then I would have said now I'm more of a business development person, not as a person, but as a more like a profession. And now I'm doing what you're suggesting. I have to find myself inner thing and then bring it out to the people. So things have changed according to my personal life after listening to your talk. And I said, maybe there is more here that I need to think about. And that's the hack that I need to go through, because it's not something I'm going to be able to figure out that quickly. So anyway, so I definitely agree with this content. The point that I want to make here is that this is a difficult topic, by the way, that some of the method that you talked about, like using the color paper, I think that's a method that I think should be a separate, I don't know if I'm talking about the speech here or not, but that should be a separate method on how to use that. I'd like to know how you're bringing that.
It's a separate method. Excuse me. It's a separate method. It was just an example of how you find an aspect of yourself. In this case, I wasn't very clear on that. I was trying to say, I want to tell people that I'm more than a techie. So I want to say I'm creative and I can think out of the box in a business way. So I found this example in my life, which is a real example. Right. So I crafted the message, how in the impromptu speech it says, you need to get an idea, and then you want to bring the supporting document, the supporting fact, and then you want to link the idea, the warrant. So right. That was an idea. The idea was I am a creative person. I'm not just a techie. The fact was, here's what I did with my life. And then the third, that one, the same thing. This is an example of I actually did that, okay? I just didn't use my own personal experience. And then I will link it to say, because I can do something like this that wasn't in any book, it was actually, it shows that I can think outside the box and solve a business problem. Okay, so this is a technique. It's a parallel creativity technique, and it's by this anthropologist called Edward de Bono. I don't know if you know him or not.
I think I have one of his book. I have heard of his name. He's well known in this field.
He did this yellow hat, green hat. I basically took that idea and I implemented it in one of my workshops.
Right. So I think I'll go into this more when we get to the speech part. But the point that I wanted to make about the content is that this idea about identity hack or crafting an identity is a very important topic that, and I think you do cover this as far as like the way you start with asking questions. Again, I think I'm going into the speech part here, which I don't want to. I think I'll save it for the second segment. Yeah, so I think overall, let's conclude this. I think this identity is a very important thing, and you get people to start thinking about it, and then show them a method on how they can start thinking about it. And then if they need further help, what they can do, because this is not a simple thing for many people. It's going to be very difficult because they have to think in a way that they never thought about.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so now you can go into the
speech part.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, so first of all, in terms of calling it a craft or a hack, we can talk about that offline. And I think there may be both. A lot of times you have a quickie process, and then you have a more comprehensive methodology. So you have rapid development, RAD, and then you also have system lifecycle. So it may be that the crafting is more the system life cycle, and then the hack, there's still a hacking technique to it. So just want to answer your question about hacking and crafting because that's an important title, right? I mean, the title is important, right? Secondly, I think I try to incorporate a lot of your suggestions over time, and I think you're a great teacher and a great coach. So two or three things I was trying to incorporate into the speech was, like you said, I try to ask questions. But I didn't just ask questions. This time I really tried to figure out and visualize if I were them, how would they experience this, and then ask a question so that I wasn't just asking a out there question, like a third party question. I was trying to bring it into a second party question. Um, I know the speech isn't very smooth, but what I am finding is that these are works in progress, right? Because we're doing this and I'm learning, and I want to take Malcolm Gladwell's approaches. It's going to take me like 10,000 speeches before I become really, really good. But it's probably going to take me 1,000 or 2 speeches before I become quite good. And so I'm willing to take Brene Brown's idea of be vulnerable, and just share where I'm at instead of waiting till I'm perfect, which goes on to your idea of iterate, release, and let my performance and your feedback continue to refine my work instead of trying to do it in the dark by myself. So I'm leveraging on your idea, on your feedback, and growing quicker on that. My speech, I think the contents were too much. Because it was a hack, stuff came in, and I think there was still enough structure. You got the idea, but it was too dynamic. I was moving around too much, and I think part of it was settled into that's my style, but part of it is cleaning that up. So maybe I can be dynamic and then pause so people can sink it in. But I understand that one of the things is I'm moving around too much. So I think the good point here is I ask questions. I ask realistic questions other people can sympathize with. And the work in progress is better organization, which is just practicing more, even on this speech. And the motion, the performance aspect is contain the movement somehow. So I'll give you 3 ideas of mine that you can comment on.
Yeah. Okay. So okay, let me ask you a question first. When you did this speech, this was your second version, was that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So there was never a third version, right?
No, because I had planned to do the third version.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. I just want to make sure I got the right one. Okay, because I don't know if I got the right one.
Actually, in my mind, I did it many times, but
right. So let me just say this: if this was like one of the things I talk about in speech hack is that there's this free speaking part, right? Did you have an outline when you did this speech? Was there an outline that you were using?
Yes.
Okay, you had an outline, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll show you my outline. It's on the wall.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see it or not, but I borrowed that from you too.
Oh, okay. Okay. No, that's good. That's good. So you had an outline. So this was more of a free speaking. Would you agree, or this was the okay? So that for free speaking, I thought it was excellent. Okay, because that's what a free speaking should be. That you went from start to finish. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm not going to nitpick on like, oh, there were these things, because if it was a free speaking, like if I was coaching you, this is what I would want to see first. This was what does your free speaking look like? Okay, so that gives me something to work with. And in free speaking, what I'm looking for is there have to be certain things in that speech. It doesn't, like I said, the main thing is you got the whole thing done from the beginning to the end based on the outline. Now you have this, then you have something to improve on. Some of the things that I think you did really well is you let yourself loose a lot, which was good, about love and all that. The way you were doing that, I thought was very effective, and that's something you want to include if you want to. If this were to be like some recording you want to put on YouTube as a way to really explain this topic, that part was very effective. The part that I think the opening I thought was good, but I think it could have been made better, uh, because this is a difficult topic for many people. And the first question is just a simple question, like, do you know who you are? And just elaborate. The one thing I would add is that elaborate on it, because it's not that simple. And one thing you do after that, when you ask a real question like that, like, do you know who you are? Stop. Let me repeat that again. Do you know who you are? Why am I asking this? Like that. Like spend some time on it. Elaborate more on it. Like, there's got to be a reason. Like, why are you asking that question? Do you know what? A lot of people out there don't even ask that question. They don't even know who they are. And this talk is about that. How do you find who you are? Because if you don't know who you are, then how are others going to know who you are? Like that, right? And you asked, I think there were questions asked. There was like one after another, but the fundamental question was still, who are you? You know, who are you? And then one of the things that I always look for is, so let me tell you who I am. And this took me a while to figure out, like that. So personalize it right from the beginning. Like, okay, so let me tell you, before I go into this, let me just tell you who I am. And let me tell you, this was not easy. But now I've developed something that'll help you to come up with who you are. This crafting your own identity. And within that identity, there is this hack you can try, you know. Ask yourself, who are you? Write down certain things. Are you compassionate? Are you curious? Well, who are you? Because first you got to know who you are, because you all have a mess, and then you can go into that example. So let me give you an example of my friend, that somebody I'm working with, who's a musician. And first, he has written this exciting music about love, but he has to himself know who he is first. Otherwise, he's not going to be able to bring it out to others. Others are not going to pay attention or give a lot of attention to his music until they know who he is. Then the music starts making sense. So that's an example that they're using. And this method that you use, oh, and another thing I'll point out is, and I don't do this either, so I learned from watching your speech, that when you use the word hack, you've got to define it. What does hack mean to you? Because hack is not a word that everybody out there, because I just noticed it when I was talking to my father, and I was using the word hack, and he was like, what do you mean by hack? So I had to explain to him what I meant by hack. And I think then he kind of got it. But hack is not a word that you can expect. You got to assume that a lot of people out there don't know. Then the other thing is some of the methods that you can talk about, and if they're deeper, then say I'm going to have a separate video that'll go into that color method, which I'd like to see how that works.
Yeah, the color method isn't really part of the speech. It's really a separate speech.
Right. But that you can take it out and bring it into a separate speech altogether, saying, by the way, here's the method that you can use. That's a separate speech altogether. That's what I wanted to point out. That when you bring up something like that, you have to ask yourself, is this helping me, or is this kind of muddling in the message? And you can mention it and say, and by the way, there is another video out there, reference it, that goes into this in more detail. Then it's okay, I think. Then it's okay. And then I like the way you brought, so the main two items I have here is that pauses are very important. That's something I'd like to see you do more. I think you are very loose and very relatable when you started explaining about Mickey's music. I thought that was very effective. Let's see, what else? Right. I just think this whole thing about why this identity is so important, you do have to spend some time on that. Like, why is that important from different angles, like you were explaining, right? So let's say, and you can use yourself as an example. So I'm currently, coming up with the redefining my identity. A lot of people are redefining their identity if they want to. People get certain age, their old identity cannot be anymore. And that's why people have to keep re-examining their identity routinely, because it changes. And you can't think of yourself as like a lot of professional athletes have this problem. At one time, they were very good athletes, but their identity now has changed, but they can't they just can't accept that their new identity is not that of the guy who was an athlete who was getting all this adulation, and a lot of them just can't deal with it. Same thing with somebody who's very successful as a child actor. Their identity is now changing, but they just can't accept that. So that's kind of important to mention if you're going to talk about identity, and why you need to keep reviewing this, because it does change. And like you were saying, our world is changing fast. Your identity can also be changing that fast too, and how people view you. Because we're aging, right? Age is something we all go through. When you're young, your identity is one thing. When you are working, your identity is one thing. When you move on to the next stage of your life, your identity is changing. So as it's changing, you got to know that. What is it? I may be going on. That's not necessarily the speech, but I think this is a very difficult topic, because a lot of people need to understand what exactly do you mean by that? What is this identity? And if you can show that, we go through life from when you're a teenager, when you're in college, when you start work, then you reach mid-age, marriage, et cetera, et cetera. At each point, your identity is probably changing, and some of people don't even realize it. And then when they go out in the real world, people wondering like why people are not reacting the way I want them to, because you haven't thought about this yourself. I don't know, maybe I'm going on too long here. So if you can add more pauses and elaboration, I think that'll make this speech better than what it is right now. Was there any specific question you had? I don't know if I addressed all of that. As far as your gestures and all that, they didn't seem to be anything that affected my understanding the topic. I like sometimes, I like the way you used your voice and kind of took risks in this free speaking. And I think that was very effective. I think the main thing that I would point out in your speaking that you want to watch, I think the questioning part, I think you're very close of getting it. I just think if you add a pause there, and sometimes just slow it down, because sometimes you go from one thought to another thought without giving me an opportunity to think about it. And take a break and ask me, so let me repeat again what I said. It's okay to repeat it, because if you think it's important, Julie, then repeat it. If you think you made an important point, but you might have not done a good job, but just don't take that chance and assume that I got it. So this is an important point. Let me repeat this again, because when you do that, it'll make me listen to you more closely. And, take a pause and elaborate. Take a pause and elaborate, because I think if you did that, your speech would improve tremendously, because a lot of times some of the points you make, they go by too fast for me. And and it's not fair to you if I have to go and pick it up on the second viewing, because that's not how people are going to, when they're listening to you, they're going to only get it on the first try. They're not going to be able to go back and, see your video again. So when you're speaking, so there are three things: slow it down, take pauses, and do more elaboration. Those are the three things I'd point out. My 60-30-10 rule, right? So slowing it down, I think, would be number one. Pauses would be number two, and elaboration would be number three. And I think if you work on those three, based on what I saw, I think it'll make it much more clearer on the main thing you're trying to say. Because when you go from one thought to another thought, I need to know, like when you're bringing an example, I need to know why you're bringing that example. What are you trying to explain with that example? Rather than, so like anytime you bring up some anecdote or some research, I need to know why you're bringing up that research. Like, what is that? How is that enhancing my understanding of your topic? And including even your personal story. So like if you were saying identity, so let me just tell you about my personal story, identity. I used to be a professional worker. Now I am doing this. I'm thinking more about this, and that's why I wanted to explain. And that vulnerability, like you were saying, is very important. Vulnerability can only be used if it's going to enhance my understanding. Otherwise, just being vulnerable for the sake of being vulnerable doesn't work. Okay, any questions? I don't know, maybe I'm giving you too much here. Or maybe I'm talking here to myself on what I should be doing.
It was a lot. I will have to watch today's segment, but I got the top three: slow it down, pause, and elaboration. You know, it might be fun for us to do a segment on this as an interview, where one of us interview the others, or as a dialogue. You and I could have a dialogue on this,
Right.
And make a segment of that.
Okay,
Just a
yeah,
suggestion.
yes, I can just interview you on some of the questions. So you can just tell me some of the questions you want me to work on, then I can do the follow on from that.
That sounds great. Thanks.
Okay, so I think any other comments on this, or we close it out? All right, we'll close this one out. So at this point, we'll close out this segment, as we had a pretty lively discussion on this topic of crafting your identity. And I want to thank Julie for recording the video. And this is what Julie just did is kind of what you need to do. When you want to become a good to great speaker, you really have to trust somebody, and also somebody who's doing it. So it's not some person who just says, "Oh, Julie, that was a great speech," and that doesn't help her. You need to be able to really be the toughest critic that Julie's going to find, not in a negative sense, in a constructive sense, so that you're tough, you're fair, and you're kind, because it takes a lot for someone like Julie to record something and expose herself to somebody else, right? So you have to be really understanding that you're doing it with love, to try to make sure that that the session with you is really helpful to her, so she can take a lot of this feedback you're giving. And you have to think about the feedback. And sometimes these things come to your mind, but once you have that trust established, then she does not view you as somebody who's trying to bring her down. You're trying to lift her up and saying, listen, and the thing is, you should be challenging somebody, okay? Because this is the point to do it. If you're not challenging here, people outside are not going to do it. They don't care, okay? So we'll close this session out and move on to our next segment. Okay, welcome back. My name is Jay Oza. This is Speech Talk Live, episode number 37, and we're moving on to segment 3. This was a segment that I put together as kind of like a fun segment, rather than talking specifically about speaking. It's about what kind of advice that you would give to your younger self. And I think it's a kind of an important question, because I just personally, I have a son who's a teenager, so I tend to give him this advice. Whether he's looking for it or not, I don't know. But sometimes this is what happens. Since kids don't ask this question, you have to ask it for them. Like, hey, if I was your younger self, this is what I would do. And then you wonder if he takes it. The interesting thing is that I get to spend, if I may use the word, quality time with my son every Sunday when I'm taking him for his trumpet lesson. And each way, it's like half hour. And that half hour, I get his undivided attention, since he's not allowed to bring his cell phone or anything else. He has to listen. And we talk for 30 minutes, and I just pose these type of questions to him and just get him to talk. And just last Sunday, I asked him this question about, he wanted to know, like he was saying that he wanted to continue playing the trumpet after high school. And I said, look, personally, after high school, I really don't care, because you're going to be 18. And then at that point, I hope you can make the right decision based on your circumstances in school. Because if you have a heavy workload, then you're not going to have time to practice your trumpet. So that's when this idea came, that that advice that I would give to my younger self is to become really good at one thing. And I know that a lot of advice is out there, but the one that I would give up at the top is get good at one thing. Something that can stretch out for a long time, like music. Maybe it's something that people will notice. And if you have a musical skill, people notice that, right? If you can play a violin or a trumpet or any kind of an instrument. And I said the purpose of that is that it'll give you a lot of confidence, so that you can always show people that you have this one unique talent that is, above average, or it's very good, that can stand on its own, no matter whether you're young, whether you're middle age or old age, that you have it and that just remains with you. It gives you the confidence to do other things. So I said that's one of the reasons why I'm emphasizing you keep on practicing. Uh, hey, Julie, are you still there? Oops, I think we might have lost
No,
Julie.
I'm here. Sorry,
Okay.
I had to juice up my computer, so I put
Okay.
myself on the blank fit.
So I'll turn it back I'll ask Julie's thoughts. So my advice was to become good at one thing, because it gives you confidence and it enhances your self-esteem, and it can help you in other areas, whether it's academic, whether it's love life, or whatever, business. You need that one thing and start developing it very early in life. It doesn't mean you have to become a pro at it, but if you're good enough, then you can use that as a kind of like a stepping stone, sort of like, hey, I did this once well, I can do anything else well. Julie, what you had something else? What is advice you would give to your
Yeah,
younger self?
thanks. Yeah, I just think it's hard for me to give one, so I'm going to give two. One is improve your communication skills. Maya Angelou, when she was young, she had all kinds of trauma. She couldn't speak, but her family stage performances, and the children are expected to perform. But I think just performing, like what Jay was talking about, and also listening and empathy are really key skills. And and for myself, I always wondered why, like, people who are not nearly as smart as I am went further along in life. I think it's because my inability to communicate and perform. The second thing is similar to what Jay's, but a little bit different theme, is don't give up. Just do something. Don't even worry if it's the one thing or not the one thing. Do something every day. Don't give up and do something. Thank you. And that is basically the Zen training, is do something every day. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Julie. I think those are two excellent. Yeah, I limited myself with one, so I had to pick the one on becoming good at one thing. The reason I agree with you. Communication is something just like, and I think that's something I do include in my book. One of the things that I point out is that communication is something that a lot of parents neglect in their children. I like to find out more about what Maya Angelou did when she was little. But I think that's a good idea, because one of the things I recommend is that some of the questions, because people take their kids out for trumpet lessons like I do with my son, but I don't spend any time with him on trying to improve his communication skills. And so people always think like, wow, that communication skill is so difficult. And I keep telling them it's not as difficult as some of the other things that kids do, such as learning how to play an instrument, learning, participating in sports. And they put so much time doing that, right? The amount of practice and tournaments and this and that. And I said that communication compared to that is pretty easy, but they just don't spend time on that. And later in life, that's the skill that they need the most. And what happens is communication is very tricky, because most of us are functional. And when you're functional, you don't think you need to be extraordinary at it, because, hey, I'm functional. I can hold my own talking to my colleagues, my friends, my teachers, etc. Why do I need to spend more time trying to be better at it? So it's kind of hard for children at a young age, and even adults, by the way, when they're working, to see the importance of it. And that's why communication is one of the most difficult skills to master, because it's not one of those skills that you feel like you need right away, because most of us feel that we're pretty functional and adequate. And then they realize, like, my God, I didn't get that job. What could it be? And they always tend to rationalize on something else. but it always comes down to a communication. Like, I'll give you a perfect example, like Barack Obama. Barack Obama, as a president, does really one thing: speak. I mean, that's his job, really. When you're a leader, your number one job is to speak as often as possible, to talk to as many people as possible. That's the skill we see today, that Barack Obama is a great speaker. But if you go back while he was honing this skill, when he was a college student, when he was a student at Harvard Law, when he was a community organizer, I think his best training was as a community organizer. You have to be a good communicator, because essentially, otherwise, what do you do as a community organizer? But talk, speak a lot, right? Give a lot of speeches. But at that time, that's not what people would have mentioned, that, oh, Barack Obama is a great speaker. One day he's going to be a president. So when you're learning, so as you're learning in life in the beginning, you don't get any credit for that communication is a skill. But when you get to the top, that is the main skill, right? So it's one of those things that's kind of hard to explain when somebody's young or somebody just started their work, why communication skill is so important, that if they don't keep their focus on it, then they may never get to the top. They might just hit a wall, like I did in my career, like Julie, you mentioned, right? So we can both understand what happens when your communication skills are not up to par. But it's one of those things you got to start thinking right way. And a lot of times people don't think of communication skill as that important, because, hey, if you're a techie, you can get a good high paying job. And then you're asking yourself, well, why do I need to improve my communication skills? Well, you don't. But then you're going to hit a wall somewhere down the line, and then it's going to be too late and you can't do anything about it. So I appreciate that communication. Yeah, I agree. That's definitely is a good one. But if I had to pick one, so you picked a nice one, Julie. Thanks a lot. So if you don't have any closing thoughts on it before we close out the show. Okay. So let me thank you all for...
Great, thank you. Sorry, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, so let me thank Julie Wu Finkelstein, as usual. She brings her A game all the time. I think today she brought her A+ game, if that's even possible. She even amazes me. I don't know. Next time she's going to have to bring her A++ game, if that's it. It's like she's just completely, blowing the roof here. But I really think without her, the show probably would be so boring, me talking all the time. It just wouldn't work. So, and this is another thing you notice, that when you have somebody to interact with, it really starts making you think. So if you're out there wondering, like, hey, I want to get started, hey, just find someone like Julie, that's it. Julie, are you available? Just give her a call, and she can help you out, get your show started. So
she can join your show.
She's very helpful, and I tell you that that's just giving an idea that a lot of people out there are wondering, like, how do I get started? It doesn't take much. Find another person like Julie and just start the show, and you both can benefit immensely. So let me just close this out and say that, you are how you speak, and you control that. You control that, whether it's one-on-one, in a small group, or in front of a large audience. And it's a skill that you got to work on it every day if you want to become an effective, a good to great speaker. And I hope you're working on that, because it's doable by anybody. It just requires to think that way. Okay, good luck, and we'll see you next week. And thank you for watching. Okay.
Thanks, Jay. You're going to turn it off, right?
Yeah. No, I'll leave this on. I edit this out.
Oh. Okay.
I edit this out when I record it, the miscellaneous talk, because I need the recording, because then what I do is when I edit it out, I'll clip that part out and I make that unlisted. So if you want to see it, if there's anything we have discussed,
well, we always say figure out anything to add, right? And next week.
Oh yeah, right. Next week. So what did you want to do next week?
Well, are you up to, like, on Wednesday, like either you interview me or we have a dialogue about identity? Because I think you're right. I would like to get your thoughts on that. And
right.
We can document it, and then I can drive the segment. It'll be segment 2.
Yeah. So there's to kind of think more about the show. Some of the things that I had planned, and some of them I did not have planned. It just came up. So one of the things that came up, so let me just start from the order here, and then
Okay, cool. Sorry, I didn't know that.
So, well, yeah, I'm kind of stepping over what you were just saying there. So one of the things that came up is when I get that thing about and this is something you brought up, and I didn't give a lot of thought to it, but it's something I need to think about it more. That that when I talk about performance, it's actually a little bit broader than that. It's not just see. There's a performance at a three level, right? There's a performance of you as an individual, right? And there is another part of it that also includes the topic. Is that topic a personal topic or not? If you don't make it personal, then that creates a problem, right? And then the third one is the actual, so there's a first party actor, first party topic, and first party performance. So for example, one of the things you had mentioned, I think we were discussing about business, why business speeches are so stale. And they're stale because the topic are not first party topic. It becomes a third party topic. So unless the business people, business leaders or business managers can make that topic into a first party topic and then give a first party performance, then they can really resonate. So I wanted to develop that more. So that's something I took away from the discussion with you. So I just wanted to let you know that's
Okay, I don't know. You know what? I'm getting a little tired, so let's just go through, remember everything, and then we can
okay. So
we
now,
can cut through it later.
yeah, so I'll bring it up. The second one about identity. So what did you want to do? You want to do like a Q&A next Wednesday?
Yeah, and then we can use that as a segment, and I will, that'll be segment 2, because clearly you have a lot of great ideas.
And I need to think about it, yeah.
I thought that it would be nice for us to do a different format.
Right. Is this, okay, let me ask you, is this something you want to use for something? Because if I'm doing a Q&A, then is this something you want to use as a way of promoting what you're trying to do? Is that what the purpose of this is?
Well, not that one. That one's just picking your brain.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So that's fine. Then we'll just do a Q&A. Just send me some questions so at least to start thinking about, and then I'll come up with my own.
Okay. Let's so we can do a Q&A, but we could just also like almost do a dialogue, like what we do here.
Right.
And then just somehow make it unifying and use that as a segment. So what I'm trying to do, and there's different formats, I just want to make that clear, is basically have both of us discourse, the word is discourse, discourse, on this topic of identity.
Okay.
So I can send you some questions if you like, but it doesn't have to be a Q&A. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you just want to have a more, you want to flesh it out more, this whole identity, and you want to just like go deep into it more. Is that?
Yeah, and just, even if I don't ask you a question, here it is, we will both have some questions, but if an idea comes up for you, you can talk about it even if we didn't set a question. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. But I think what would help more is if we use that for our own selves, like what is the identity that we have, that we want, that we think we have, like who are you, right? And you can go first, I can go next, and then that way it would be more constructive than to just generally talk about it. So we can use ourselves as an example.
So you want to do like a mini workshop almost?
Yeah, sort of like that, because if you can do it yourself, then you can talk about it with others. That, hey, like I said, you can only be a first party performer if you have done it to yourself first, right?
Okay. But I will send you some. I have a structured process.
Yeah.
I've used it with 3 people differently. Taking pieces of it. It's worked really well. So I'll send you. I'll just send you the PowerPoint of the process. I have a PowerPoint on that, and then we can take what we want. You can take what you want.
It's because the thing is that, like, I think you were doing this with Mickey, right?
I haven't done it with Mickey yet. Doing it with Mickey this afternoon.
Right, because what I was doing, I think, was the next step, and I think what he needs to do is the first step. The first step is what I tried to get into, but at that time I didn't understand it the way you explained it. That these music has come out of his inner feelings, right?
Right.
But he needs to know who he is as a person, because otherwise, if he doesn't know it, then other people are not going to see it. So I think that's the part that you're working with him on that. And then once he has that, then I can certainly work with him again on
Exactly.
trying to create that to the. I'm more into, see, you have this background of Eastern philosophy and all
And
that looks into
psychology and
to
philosophy,
look
all that.
internally at person. I'm still learning that. I'm more into how other people, how to project who you are to other people. But if you don't know who you are, then it's kind of like a lost cause, right? Because you're giving a false image, and that may not be who you are. They may not perceive that way of who you are.
Exactly. So to me, the piece I'm trying to do is I think Mickey knows who he is. There's a lot of integrity in his being, but he's never used words. Okay. So he's never articulated it. He's never expressed it in words. Because he certainly expressed it in music.
But he has to get it out of here, out of his mouth.
Right. He has to express it in words. And
Because
then you can take that and use that as a branding.
yeah, first he has to describe himself, who he is, and if he cannot do that, then you have to help him think about it that way.
Right,
Like,
right,
where is this coming
exactly.
from? Like, why? Like, it's basically the why question. Like, keep going into why. Like, why did you write about this music? Why at this time?
Right.
Why at this particular type of thing? Why this genre, etc. And that has to come because he has to be his own. He's a domain expert of himself, right?
That's a nice way to put it. Yeah.
So he knows his domain. You're just there to get it out of him, to pick his brain on what his domain really is. Domain might be
Right.
a more of a techie word, like like he's a domain expert.
Yes, it's a nice techie one. I like the
A
word
nice thing. Right.
domain.
Yeah. So if we can just even do it ourselves, it'll help us
Yeah,
project.
let's do it ourselves.
Because like I'm more focused towards speaking, so I have to come up with my own identity. Why am I doing this? So part of it is in the book, but I haven't expressed it like that. So maybe next Wednesday that would be a good.
Well, let
good
me just say, Jay, the whole idea of identity is different than role. Like if
Mhm.
you're a speaker or you're a salesperson, you're still in the relatively outer realm of role.
Mm.
Like, so we want to go actually at a deeper level. Like I'm curious, I'm a discoverer. I like to share my knowledge with people, so I'm a teacher. I want to help people to do impossible things. I inspire. So
Mm.
those is like a deeper level of what I call core values, core traits, and out of that comes many possible roles. Because you could be a salesperson,
Right.
you could be a project leader, you could be a think tank person, right? As long as those traits are manifested, it's okay. So I'm really digging a little deeper. I didn't want to talk about that in
Right.
the
Is this
segment.
what you're saying? Is this the same thing that Simon Sinek talks about with like start with why? Is that so you're applying the why to yourself? Like, he's talking more from why, from a like why businesses do what they do. Like, why do you do what you do? Is this the why that makes you do what you do?
I don't know his work, so I can't speak to it, but
Okay, I'll
it
send you
sounds
his
closer. It
I'll send you
sounds
his
like
link.
this.
Yeah, because if
Okay.
if, if
It
you
sounds
mention
like there's some similarity.
right, I'll send you the link and you can take a look at it because I think
Okay.
what you're saying is that I need to get to your why. Like what makes you tick, that makes you do this. Like it's got to be something within you that, like, for
Yes.
me, why am I doing speaking? What's the purpose behind it? So I think, okay, I know you're tired, so maybe anything else, Julie, before we close this out?
No, is there other things you want to talk about?
No, my book, like I said, I'm just working on my. I changed some names around after talking to you. I think the name that I'm going to stick to now is everything is going to have to be called. Not all of it, but the book is. I'm leaning towards good to great speaking. I think it's something we talked about last time. So I'm going to
Yes.
remain consistent with that. And I even noticed that that particular domain is even available. So I could even use it if I decide to go that way. And I'm pretty much uh, hoping to wrap up most of it by this weekend if I can dedicate a lot of time. So I'm pretty close to getting the second draft done
Wow.
now.
Okay. I'm
Right
a
now, the
couple.
point is that it's coming out to be, and then once the second draft is done, then I will send that out to you and Marius, and then I'll freeze it at that point, and then based on that feedback, I'll go through one more iteration and then get an editor and finalize it.
Okay. So I'm going to check for content consistency.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is a great book. You might like it.
I think I have it.
Oh, okay.
I have it. I have it, but I haven't read it. I had ordered it when he first announced that he was coming out with it.
You know, I buy very few books in my life these days. I might actually buy this one. So I'm going to read it first and see.
I'm the opposite. I buy too many books.
I used to do that, but when I moved, I got rid of 70% of my books.
I buy it on Kindle, so it's easy.
I hate that.
Yeah, I like it. So. All right, Julie.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Enjoy your weekend. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye. Are we on for Wednesday?
Yeah, 11, right? Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, and you'll send me some information, right? Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.